Hey, hunting family, you are tuning into the Tracks and Tackle podcast, brought to you by Menser Outdoors.
Hey there, hunting family. This is Ron from Tracks and Tackle, and we're back with a quick preview of an exciting episode coming your way. We're thrilled to have Bryan Farmer joining us, a true leader in deer management and hunting advocacy. With over 27 years of experience in the city of Farmington Hills Department of Special Services, Bryan has played a pivotal role in creating impactful programs like the Southeast Michigan Urban Deer Coalition and the Hunt Michigan Collaborative. In this episode, Bryan shares how these initiatives are shaping the future of hunting, from innovative urban deer management strategies to building partnerships that grow hunter participation. We also dive into his vision for expanding this concept beyond Michigan to create a nationwide movement he calls the American Hunt Collaborative. If you're passionate about preserving the hunting tradition and making a positive impact on wildlife conservation, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Tune in to learn how Bryan's groundbreaking work is ensuring the future of hunting for generations to come. Let's get to it. Hey there, hunting family. It's time to give a shout out to a company that's been keeping our communities moving since 1995. I'm talking about Interstate Garage Doors. For nearly 3 decades, Interstate Garage Doors has been the go-to choice for comprehensive garage door services in South Central PA, as well as the surrounding Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia areas. And get this, they're not just any company. They're veteran-owned and family-operated, with a proud history of serving both residential and commercial clients. Their professional technicians are the real deal, offering top-notch installations from industry-leading manufacturers and expert repairs for all garage door makes and models. From residential garage doors to overhead doors and openers, Interstate Garage Doors does it all. So whether you're a hardworking contractor building homes or a homeowner looking for service or just needing an upgrade, you can trust Interstate Garage Doors to get the job done right. And hey, they're not just experts in garage doors, they're also experts in giving back to the community, sponsoring podcasts like Tracks and Tackle. Are you ready to experience the Interstate difference for yourself? If so, here's a little something extra for our loyal podcast listeners. Use promo code Tracks and Tackle when you contact Interstate so they know you heard about them here. Just visit igdoors.com today to get an estimate or request service, or give them a call at 717-263-3150. Don't wait. Take the first step towards a smoother, more secure garage today. Hey, hunting family. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Tracks and Tackle. We've got a good one for you today. Bringing on a guest, Bryan Farmer, who we sort of ran into each other through a mutual connection. Glad that Bryan's coming on the show. Just to give a brief update, he's got 27 plus years with the city of Farmington Hills Department of Special Services. Leadership in deer management initiatives, and his work with the Michigan Hunt Collaborative. Bryan is a man that wears many hats, and I don't think that an introduction that I can do would probably do justice, because you got your hand to the plow doing a lot of different things. So Bryan, welcome to the show. I'll let you introduce yourself to our listening audience. Just tell them a little bit about yourself, man.
All right. So I'm came from the Parks and Rec world. So I went to school for actually something called Parks and Rec Management. It's an actual degree, a 4-year degree, and discovered it my 3rd year in after my mom said, "You're not going to be on the gravy train all your life. You better find something to do." So I stumbled into it, and it's awesome. I'm able to do a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I started off doing programs, events, building things like skate parks and disc golf courses. And as I got more into my career, I moved up and now I'm the deputy director for a large department, has a golf course, ice arena, a couple of community centers, and it's parks and recreation, but our department's called special services. And if you know parks and recreation, it's a lot of things. Some people run cemeteries, some it's crazy. So we, for example, do Meals on Wheels to seniors. We have a whole bus fleet that transports seniors around. We have we manage our fire stations in terms of maintenance. We do the same thing at City Hall. So we do a lot of different things along with all the Parks and Rec fun stuff. And one thing, how I got involved with deer management was the city manager was a hunter. I was a hunter. And I started an archery program in 2011. And he knew I was a hunter and outdoor enthusiast. And backing up in 2009, I started running our nature center and getting that going, getting kids involved with it, and a lot of trying to get more people outdoors through that.
Right.
And what better guy to run deer management than the guy that, ran the nature center as well as all the other stuff and was into hunting and knew a little bit about deer. So I took on the challenge and yeah, so that's how I got involved with it. A little bit about me.
That cracked the door open. And it's funny how, you're running, like when you run circles, the deer hunters and the outdoorsmen, we find one another, right? You hunted, he hunted, and we sort of we always find one another in those type of scenarios. So today on today's without a doubt. So today's episode, we got Bryan on here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he's doing with deer management and some of the initiatives that you got a big vision, and you've put some things together, and you got a little bit of history under your wheels as well, success. So today, we want to talk about, your experience, the Hunt Michigan Collaborative, how these initiatives are going to impact the future of hunting. And that's where we're going to take it today. So I really wanted to, start off with, you touched on one of my first questions was telling me about your role in the city of Farmington and Hills and how you got involved. But, sometimes it seems like when you do something well, you have ideas. And I think when we first talked, you talked about having, you're an idea guy, you're a big picture guy, and you bring those ideas to the table. And then because you've done well in past efforts, you sort of get the green light to go ahead and head up the next initiative, right? So how did that work? How did you go from, we all start somewhere, and I like what you said about, Mom said I'm not going to be on the gravy train forever. So I had to choose a path, but it sounds to me like you've worked your way up the ladder and you've been given a couple of pretty serious projects, and some of them, one leads to the next. It's almost like one door opens to the next, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way, and you're right on with, I think I earned that trust with the ideas I had as I grew into what I have done. And the community that I work for is very supportive of making good things happen. And we're fortunate we have some, our budget's good. And when it comes to exploring these ideas that can maybe even help some other communities, that's what we've been able to do. And we're happy to be able to share these ideas and models to be able to help other communities be better and make a difference. So our community has been very supportive of some of the ideas I've had. And I didn't want to go small deer management either. I think we want to go big and really make a difference, not just in Michigan, but how do we take the same model that we've created and spread this across the country? And it's something that can really happen. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah. That's really what excites me. When I talked to you for the first time, we talked about we talked a short period of time, but we talked about a lot of things, personal life, our worldview on things, and sort of the vision that you have. And I thought, man, I'm so glad that we're going to be able to carve out some time to get you to come on the show and stuff. Tell me about, like, how did it happen with the coalition? What is it? The Southeast Michigan Urban Deer Coalition. How did that thing birth?
Well, I'll let me say one more thing before I jump into that.
Sure.
I've got a lot of faith in God, and I believe that I've had some amazing things happen for example, I built $1 million skate park, the largest all concrete skate park in the Midwest, and people didn't believe it would happen from fundraising, and it wasn't me. Like, I literally put an article out there, and I had a guy that I read an article a year before about this big game hunter that gave money to random projects, and he lived in our community. And I was like, man, that guy sounds cool. I forgot about him. And then this article goes out, and I get a phone call from George Riley's assistant and says, hey, George wants to meet with you. And I'm like, name sounds familiar. And so again, been praying about, God, let's prove him wrong. Let's show that we can make this thing happen. And so I get the phone call. I go visit with him, and he gave $500,000 to kick things off. So it was real easy to spark it. And then he gave another matching grant. So immediately we raised about $800,000 within less than a year, and it came easy. So I learned through a lot of the projects that I've done that if I just sort of let God lead the way, and I'm just going to listen and sort of let it go. And when I know something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I haven't been wrong since I've been sort of taking that path of not me coming up with all this stuff and doing it in my time, but sort of waiting and being patient, and it happens in God's time. So I'll jump into the question of, how did the Southeast Michigan Urban Deer Coalition come about? It was, in 2014, we really started the idea of Farmington Hills, where I work in the city. I oversee deer management. We had some deer issues, and our city manager at the time said, hey, let's figure out, how do we start this thing off? How do we start to address our deer issues? So we contacted the DNR. They graciously met with us right away. So in 2015, we started collecting data, meaning we took phone calls from residents, started writing them down, getting emails, logging them. We did aerial deer counts in a helicopter to be able to see how many deer year after year, to sort of track that. That was cool.
I bet. That sounds exciting.
We did a community deer survey. Well, not a lot of people can handle the helicopter. I'd taken several people up to give them the opportunity, from our park staff to DNR, to people to be able to help do the counts.
You've got to be built for it, huh?
Yeah, they don't know how to handle it well. I've taken some sneaky pictures of them not feeling well in the chopper.
Yeah,
thinking they were tough guys until that happened. But fortunately, I was able to hold my cookies and fly in the helicopter and be able to get that experience several times. So we started collecting that data in Farmington Hills, and immediately I asked the DNR after we reached back out and said, why are we doing this by a city by city approach? Why aren't we doing this regionally? And why don't you have a plan in place to help us manage urban deer? So the state plan says, there's a statewide urban deer management plan, but nowhere in there does it say, here's how you can manage the deer. It just says there's deer in your community. This is what they eat. It educates people about deer and wildlife, but not really how do you reduce that population if it gets too high. So at that time, the DNR didn't want anything to do with telling anybody, any community, they had a problem, because communities sort of created their own problem when they started putting ordinance against hunting, because that took away the only way to really control that population, because of cities growing up and urban sprawl, and they thought, okay, we better stop hunting. So then now we've got the problem of too many deer, and we go to the DNR and we say, how do you reduce the deer population? Well, you got to hunt them. People don't like that answer. They want to find, do you vaccinate them? Do you sterilize them? What else do you do? We don't want to kill them. So as time went on in our data and collection, we discovered that a neighboring community also wanted to start doing the same kind of research. So we helped them get started and said, here's what we started doing per recommendation by the DNR. So here's what you should do. And let's partner up on these aerial deer counts. So we did, and we started taking that regional approach. So that wasn't good enough because we had a lot of other communities saying the same thing. So in 2021, we rallied up a bunch of communities, city leaders, city managers, mayors, and we put the word out and said, hey, we're going to create this coalition. And it started with the Oakland County, like one county area, to start to get together to say, okay, we have a county problem. How do we best manage this together? Because the deer doesn't know borders. If we were to do a call, they're going to cross that street and go to the next community, and they're going to have the same problem. So we thought, okay, if we can get everybody together and really manage the deer together, it seems to make a lot of sense, common sense. So the DNR has been very supportive as we've gone through this process. So the coalition began in 2021 in Oakland County. Then we did a 7-county survey about deer, asking residents, what do you feel about deer? Do you think they're a nuisance? Do you have concerns about deer? When we looked at the overall data, it was about over 70% of the people were saying, yeah, we think we might need to do something about the deer. A lot of people said they didn't know. Some people just said, I enjoy seeing the deer around. So at that point, we realized, okay, we're going to get some support from residents. There's definitely some concerns with deer. They're seeing a lot of deer. There's deer vehicle crashes. There's a lot of landscape damage. There's fear of Lyme disease, potential other diseases, safety for their pets, their kids. So you think of it, they'll say it. It's a lot of concern about deer. So in 2023, we created this to be the Southeast Michigan Urban Deer Coalition. And that brought in more opportunity for other cities from other counties to be part of it and become a network to work together to come up with a solution to better manage deer in Southeast Michigan.
And so like your role within the coalition specifically, your role, because it sounds like you were instrumental in getting the thing going, but what is it exactly that you did or do?
So I took charge, because if you've ever been in a meeting or a situation where, let's say
somebody's got to be the point of the spear, right?
You're looking for volunteers and you hear crickets,
yeah.
All right, I gotta lead this. So that's sort of what happened. We invited everybody to the table. We continue to get more and more communities jumping on. There's several communities, as well as the University of Michigan, Michigan State, U.S. Department of Agriculture. We have state representatives, House of Representatives. We have state senators. We have county leaders. So it's a lot of different people. So I'm able to lead and basically direct city managers and mayors and say, here's what we're going to do. Hey, can you do this? Can you help out with that? And it's really been great to get that support across the whole region, and people really let me take lead on it. And ultimately, it's not that hard to say we need to better manage deer. And there's a lot of reasons why. And it's not about killing deer. It's about healthier habitat. A lot of communities have browse lines in their parks with invasive species growing up. They start to talk about, what about the birds? What about the bees? Well, you're not going to see them as often when you don't have the flora and the fauna appropriate to what the environment should be. When you've got deer eating all that, you start wondering why they're coming to eat your plants in your yard, because they need to eat, and that's what's available for them. So it's really become, in a lot of communities, a major issue. Not just in Michigan. We've done our research across the country and developed some good partnerships there too to learn from.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Basically, if I had to narrow it down, I would say it's either you increase food supply or you deplete herd numbers, right? And to have a healthy herd, because they need to eat, and they're going to go to where that food is, whether that's your flower bed or whether that's a food plot that you have out, set up, or, wherever that is. So that's great. And then so you got this coalition established, but then in addition to this coalition, you've got this project, the Hunt Michigan Collaborative, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know how to frame this up. Like, this is another project, or is this just another tier, near neighbor to the same project? I mean, I love the concept, but why don't you just explain the mission of that, the collaborative, the Hunt Michigan Collaborative?
So I'm going to say this is the solution to growing hunting across the country, and we're going to start it in Michigan and help develop the model for it. And it's already, again, that vision of seeing it happen back, I would say in 2015 is when we started doing high level archery programming. And so sort of how the Hunt Michigan Collaborative came about is the state of Michigan in 2024, earlier this year, created something called the Deer Management Initiative, and the Natural Resource Commission is the organization or the body for the state of Michigan that really establishes the laws, the rules towards wildlife management, whether it be trout, deer, coyote. They're in charge of the state's wildlife and making those policies and decisions for the DNR to carry out. So the Natural Resource Commission, or the NRC, and the DNR got together and they said, we need to come up with some better ways to manage deer in Michigan. We have to change things up. We have a lot of challenges here in Michigan, and they need to be looked at a little bit differently. So they had open up applications for people to apply across the lower peninsula of Michigan, the upper peninsula, and they were going to take 24 people, stakeholders and individuals from the lower peninsula and 24 from the upper. So when I read about this, there's over 2,500 people that applied. I read about it. I called up our main state wildlife biologist that I've been working with, Chad Stewart, and said, I think I should be part of this. And he said, I do too. You got a spot. So I didn't have to do all the paperwork and apply and wait for an answer. It was in a conversation that said, yeah. So they selected certain stakeholders. So there was other individuals from the lower peninsula, was the president of the Michigan National Deer Association, the president of the Michigan Bow Hunters Association, the executive director of the Michigan Farm Bureau, a lot of different stakeholders, and then individuals. Like there's a farmer that was on the DMI, and just your day-to-day hunter, average Joe that was part of it. There was men, there was women. It was a very diverse group of people, and our challenge was to address a lot of the state's challenges, which there's an overpopulation of deer in Michigan, especially in our urban and rural areas where there's farms, a lot of crop damage, a lot of deer vehicle crashes, an imbalanced herd in terms of a lot of people looking for the antlers and not shooting the doe. So a lot of effort was to say, we need to start reducing the antlerless population to balance the herd out. So two different sets of challenges between the upper peninsula and lower peninsula of Michigan. So some of the objectives were, and I'm going to read these, were to address and assist with a balanced and healthy deer herd. Another objective was to contain and eradicate disease. In Michigan, we have some cases of CWD, a small area of tuberculosis. Obviously, some years we get EHD, some years we don't. But really try to identify and how do we start to eradicate that or do the best we can to contain it. Another objective is to increase hunter satisfaction, reduce deer conflicts like deer vehicle crashes, increase hunter numbers, increase hunter education on deer and deer management, and improve habitat through a systematic approach, which you ask about the Hunt Michigan Collaborative, and that idea addresses all of the challenges and objectives that were given to the DMI, and we were asked to come up with non-regulatory and regulatory ideas to present for the DNR to present to the Natural Resource Commission. So some of the regulatory ideas were to let's open up, instead of just having private land antlerless hunts in the early and late season, let's allow it to happen on public land as well and give more people opportunity to hunt. So there's some regulatory ones, but I'll talk more about the non-regulatory. And those were ideas like the Hunt Michigan Collaborative, increased funding support for the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger, improve public land habitat, increase opportunities for access to agriculture in urban areas. So a lot of those non-regulatory items that the DMI suggested are all sort of wrapped up in the Hunt Michigan Collaborative. So it's an exciting new idea.
Yeah, so let me chime in here because you're feeding. It's like I feel like I'm drinking from the fire hose, and I love it. So, what really fascinates me is, whenever I looked into this and we talked about this first time, because this is what we talk about a lot of times, when we're just having conversation on this show, is, and you touched on it, the increasing the hunter population, right? Our hunting population, that demographic has been decreasing statistically. Some of it's cultural, there are tons of different reasons behind that and statistics behind, why. But for me, the thing that we talk about a lot is, man, just be a mentor to somebody. Like, whether it's a kid that's getting into it at an early age, or whether it's a guy in his 40s who wants to get started and just never had a dad show him or anything like that. Like, we all need a mentor. And so, like, when we talked about increasing hunter numbers, through this program, I thought, man, this is something I want to hear a lot more about. And it sounds to me, I don't want to like simplify it, but I'm trying to in my brain when I hear you tell me, all these bullets, the non-regulatory suggestions, a lot of them are, look, I mean, let's just create opportunities for guys that do this anyway to get out there. Like, let's create opportunities for public access, access to urban hunting, to the Hunters for Homeless, or the Hungry, Feeding the Hungry, and programs like that. Like, if we create access, there are guys and gals out there that do this anyway. And if you're built mentally like I am and like you are, and most anybody that's listening to us, like, we're going to embrace those opportunities and step through the door. We just need an invitation, somebody to give the nod of the green light, say, hey, come on, step through here and do this with us. Right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's guys like us that already do it. But the other reason why I got invited to be part of the DMI was my involvement with archery. In 2015, we built an archery range, the first design of its kind in Farmington Hills. It's called Riley Archery Range, named after that guy that gave all the money to the skate park.
Right.
He also supported this idea of the archery range. And the Safari Club International Novi chapter that I'm part of, they ponied up some money and support as well to get things rolling. So we built this range. Basically, it's got two side walls, a back wall, baffles over top so the arrows won't fly out, and you're shooting from underneath the shelter. So we opened up this range, and in the first year, over 5,000 people came and shot at the range. In 7 years of being open, over 30,000 people have shot at that range. We started working with, in 2016, I started going to the Archery Trade Association trade show. I was invited there to go speak about this archery range and the programs that we're doing in Michigan. And they said, well, you need to get more communities getting, started too. So I said, sure. So in 2017, I said, don't expect Parks and Rec people to come up with half the money to buy the equipment. Give it to us. Stop having us try to find ways to get the money. We already are running the programs. We'll provide the land. We'll market it. We'll get the people in the door, and we'll handle it. But give us the equipment. So they said, okay, we'll try this. We'll give you the equipment. They gave us, backing up, when I first started archery in 2011, They invited 17 communities to come to a training to learn archery and get certified. And out of those communities that attended, you had to go and get a grant afterwards. Farmington was the only community that started an archery program because everybody else didn't have the time to go fundraise to get equipment. So I want to prove to them that if you give it to us, we'll get things rolling. So fast forward to this year, we have over 50 Parks and Rec departments now, since they've helped give us, I would say half of those communities they've given us equipment for. And now we've got thousands of people shooting archery. And in 2018, we started testing the idea of, and these are very diverse populations. We got people of all ages, ethnicity,
I bet.
Ability. You've got the Indian population, Asian population, and we've surveyed people since 2015 saying, have you ever hunted before? Are you interested in hunting? Have you bought a bow? Are you going to keep shooting? All this data that we've collected over these years. And because of that data, we've proven that if we were to offer hunting opportunities to these people that have never done it before, they would sign up. So we did bow fishing opportunities. We've taken over 100 people bow fishing. We did goose hunts. We did pheasant hunts. We did deer hunts. And it wasn't about shooting a bow, shooting a gun at that point. And in that the non-threatening entry sport of archery introduces a lot of people into a weapon that's in schools. Like people are shooting bows in schools through the NASA program, for example. So it's easier to help them understand if you use a weapon safely, like a bow or a gun, it's okay to use that for hunting. And so we've gotten hundreds of people out hunting that have never done it before. So when the Hunt Michigan Collaborative idea came about, that's sort of how it was born several years ago. But as I mentioned earlier, it's sort of in God's timing. I always want this to happen. I'm like, come on, people, like we can grow this thing. We can get more people into hunting. Like this will work. And I've shared that. I've talked at the ATA show. I've talked to pro shop owners. I go to the ATA show every year. I'm contracted out by USA Archery to teach level 1 and 2 certification. So I talk to probably 100 to 150 pro shop owners, manufacturers as they come through our program, as well as go to their booths and network with them at the show. Yeah. So they all know of Michigan and what we're doing with archery. But it finally came to fruition when we had this one shot through the DMI. And I thought, all right, this is it. Like we got this one shot to get this group of 24 people to believe in the idea. And if I can get, because it was a vote, each regulatory and non-regulatory item was a vote of those people to say, okay, are we going to push this along or are we not?
You need buy-in, right?
Yeah, it was like, again, a lot of prayers, like, all right, if this is meant to be, it is. If it's not, it's not.
Right.
So I connected with some key people in that group and had some conversation. And when it came up for vote, 22 people said yes, 0 said no, and 2 abstained because they didn't want to vote for anything because they didn't want to have their names associated with anything.
They wanted to remain on the fence. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll call it unanimous in that way.
I'll say, yeah, that's great.
They believe in it. Yeah. So what I can explain what it is because everyone's probably wondering, what does that mean? So it really starts with 2 things to get it rolling. And one is connecting people with all of these hunting opportunities. And we've got Safari Club that does hunts. We've got Pheasants Forever. We got the Turkey Federation. We've got several organizations. You got Bob's Conservation Club down the road doing squirrel hunts. Like all these great groups are doing all these opportunities across Michigan. And if we can just let everybody know about them, we might get new people into it, or even people that just don't have a good spot to go hunt. I've gotten emails from people saying, I've been hunting in, up north and I don't see deer. And I'm afraid my kids are going to not want to hunt because we just never see deer. Like, and then they'll learn about these opportunities and they'll sign up. And like, thank goodness, like we found a spot we can actually see deer. So one way is to connect people. And that's through basically, here, I'll hold it up. We created this simple ad with the QR code. And this is going to be put on signs at shooting ranges throughout Michigan. It's going to be in the Hunter Digest that gets put out to every hunter that's going to look at it. It's going to be in on different websites. like the Safari Club website, the Turkey Federation website. It'll be in Parks and Recreation brochures. It'll be, we have cards that we're handing out to kids in camps. There's a lot of ways we're going to get out through the media. The Farm News did an article about it, and I've had over 300 people email me, people from all over the country saying, one was from Washington saying, I got a few buddies that we want to go hunt in Michigan, and we never see deer here in Washington where we go. We like to go there. We heard about this program. We like to try it out. And so it's really connecting a lot of people, not just it's veterans, it's people with disabilities, it's new hunters, it's seasoned hunters. So it's already sparked a lot of interest, and we got a whole long list of people that are on our communication list to say, hey, here's a hunting opportunity. But the coolest thing, I think, is the other part. And it's easy to get the number of people out there, and we're going to fill these programs up.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I mentioned earlier was we've got a major issue in Michigan that starts with rural crop damage and farmers losing a lot of money in crop damage.
Yep.
Who have day jobs. They've got the responsibility to manage the deer, and they just don't have the time to do it, and they need help. So they've basically, if you've ever knocked on a door for a farmer saying, hey, can I hunt here? It used to be like, sure. Now it's like, I don't know, I've been burned. Like I had someone drive through my field last year. They leave their crap out here. They argue with my neighbors. Like, so
it's a liability nowadays.
Yeah. Liability is number one. They're like, someone gets hurt, I'm going to lose the farm. And it's true. So what we created is, it's called the Hunt Michigan Collaborative National Deer Association Farm Tour. And it's covered on the liability of the National Deer Association. They've already got a system in place. So we coordinate with the farmers. So let's say we're already working with the Farm Bureau and the Soybean Committee, which the Soybean Committee is a 7-person governor-appointed board. And they love this idea, and they've connected us with a lot of farmers already that need help. So, and the DNR is in support of it, making sure we get the deer management assistant permits, the crop damage permits, and the support we need to be able to do these organized hunts. So the way it works is a farmer says, I've got so many deer, I need help. I've got a couple guys that come out in the summertime, help me out, but it just never ends, and I need more deer shot. So we create this organized hunt, which after we meet with the farmer, we determine, okay, can we put 6 blinds out, ground blinds out on your property safely? Most of them have over 1,000 acres or more, different farms in the same area. So they get the DMAPs, they get the crop damage permits. So, for example, the DMAPs take place during the hunting season. So in Michigan, that's September through January now, that you can either archery hunt or gun hunt different times during that period. So the way the hunts work is we go there the day of the hunt after we scout out the property. A couple hours before, we pop up these ground blinds in the locations we determine with the farmer that's where the deer are going to be. And then we put a couple chairs in there. We put a bag with a roll of toilet paper, some snacks, flashlight. And we've done mainly evening hunts. And so people can register for these hunts, and they actually donate to participate. And so for these hunts, $100 for a hunt, and you get the blind already set up for you. The chairs are already out there. We're able to buy the equipment for these hunts. Eventually, any leftover money from this is going to go towards building archery ranges in public parks and getting more archery equipment to communities, because these archery ranges, like I mentioned our archery range earlier, there's going to be 3 more built in the state of Michigan this year, or the next year or two, in state parks. And several communities around Michigan want to build a range in their park because they've seen, if you build a range, if you build it, they will come. And that's what's
it opens
happening.
the door, right?
Yeah, so more people in the door, full circle, more people get into hunting. When we survey the people through our archery programs, 40 to 50% of the people want to hunt, and only 10% currently have. So we're missing 30 to 40% of the people that we say hunting, will never be what it once was. That's where the idea comes in to say it will be bigger than what it once was if we do these ideas and come together and collaborate on all the
Love it.
hunting opportunities, get the entry point in the door through archery programs and ranges. So yeah, there's a lot of a lot happening with it. So
Yeah, I mean, I got a good buddy. It's too cold for him to hunt. We jest, right? So he says he doesn't want to sit in a cold, but he's got a young guy who's coming of age to, get outdoors and stuff. And, when I was young and I was just getting started, I couldn't sit still, and, I didn't, but I still went out and went through the motions because my dad and my brother and I went out, we just did that sort of thing. And we were talking the other day, and he was just saying about, I want to get my son outdoors and get him involved, whether it's fishing or shooting or deer hunting in the winter in the Northeast, in the North at all. Like, it can be tough, especially if you're not seeing anything. But if you're getting guys, regardless of their age, out, he's looking for that setup, where set me up, let me have some opportunity, and then come in after the fact and, gut it, clean it, drag it for me. And he's like, I'll give it a shot, and, that's like the full guide service. But if you can put somebody that hasn't hunted before into a position where they're seeing deer or whatever they're hunting, if you're hunting ducks, you're seeing ducks, or you're hunting geese, you're seeing geese. Like, if you're seeing activity, you can bear that cold temperature a lot more. You could sit a lot longer than if you're just sitting there all day and, you might see some squirrels or chipmunks.
yeah, we actually, so it's funny you say that, because we did a hunt last weekend, and I put a heater in each blind because it was cold. It was
Right.
really cold. So the way I'll sort of, the day of the hunt, everybody shows up to home base after we get the blinds out there. So let's say everybody's meeting at 2:30. We've got 6 blinds out there, and 2 people are going to hunt per blind. They've registered for the hunts. And once they get there, we go over the rules. And the rules are, you stay in your blind until dark. Text me if you need anything, but you don't walk around and start tracking deer. You don't pull the deer through the bean field because you don't know how to go, to safely get that out of there. So that's where the farmers trust us to make sure we can get those deer out of the crops as safe as possible. Yep. And we track the deer. We don't go on the neighbor's property and start looking around and shining lights. So we make sure that we abide by those farmers' rules. Once we drop the people off their blind, we let them shoot a certain number of deer depending on how many tags we have. Sometimes they can use their own tags as well. It's all antlerless currently. So we dropped the people off of the 6 blinds. We had 3 different guides. So I would guide 2 of the blinds. So I drop off 2 sets of people. Another person drop off 2 sets, and so on. So once we drop them off, even the guides can go hunt, find a spot to go, communicate on our phones, just to make sure if there's any issues. And then we break a little bit earlier, and then we start going to pick people up. And at that time, so for example, I'm going to go to one blind and they shot 2 deer. I'm going to pick them up, throw 2 deer in the back of my truck, tag them, take them to that other blind where they shot 2 deer. And together we'll field dress. Some people have never field dressed a deer before.
That's part of the learning experience too. Yeah.
Some have done it before. So at the end of it, we all come back to home base, and everybody's excited, like, oh, look at all the deer. Like, and the farmer's happy because we took some deer out. We're getting pictures. And at that point, the people have the choice. Either they can take the deer themselves, or they can donate them to a food bank, Sportsmen Against Hunger, someone in need that they may know of at their church or another. So every deer that we've gotten, so we've, for example, we did 3 pilot hunts on one farm. And from those hunts, we had our youth hunt had 5 youth with 7 mentors. So one of the blinds had 2 people, and 2 of the blinds had two adults per kid. They were all excited. One was 3 generations, a dad, a kid, and a grandpa. The grandpa has Parkinson's. They've never hunted before, 3 together. And we don't know how much longer he's going to be able to do that. So this is a cool thing to get these guys together that would not have done that. So out of those 3 hunts, we had 31 hunters and harvested 20 deer and donated 13 of those deer. So you do the math of those, four servings per pound. We did a lot of, we helped a lot of people out. Same time, got a lot of people excited about hunting, and they want to do it again. We worked with organizations like Women of the Wild. There's a group called Black to the Land. Getting African American people out into hunting and get that interest there. So it's not just individuals that are interested in the hunts; it's groups of people that are wanting to do them now. So it's
awesome.
It's been really awesome. So we could take care of your buddy that is afraid of the cold. And
he
would out there and
hang with the heater, and if he had help cleaning it up and all that, he'd be down, and he'd be game for that. So, and I'm sure he'll listen. He'll be listening, and he'll chime in with some comments after he hears this. So, I had a question for you while you were talking, and it's escaping me, but it'll come back to me. You talked about, taking this, these programs, the collaborative nationwide, right? You got this vision to go bigger. And, we do a lot of things, we're running a podcast. We do an outdoor page. We have a nonprofit that's, not related to like a ministry nonprofit. And then we work 40 hours, like we all have our own jobs and everything. And so like the biggest thing when you're doing like volunteer work or nonprofit work is getting that funding, because that's the hardest thing. Like you said, if like you'll provide the land if somebody's going to give you the tools to do the job, and, and you'll put in the effort and stuff. But like, how do you take this thing to the next level? Because you got the traction and you've got the data, and it sounds like you got support in the communities that you've been working with. There is that, getting those early adopters are so important, because you don't have the track record yet, but now you have the track record. And so momentum carries you too. But let's talk to me a little bit about like taking this thing, to the nation, beyond states and working with other states, doing this sort of thing.
So I think the one key piece is when we say collaborative, it isn't saying the Hunt Michigan Collaborative owns this idea. It's an umbrella of a bunch of organizations that's working together to achieve the common goal of how do we grow hunting, which we know all the different factors. When you grow hunting, it's going to help with conservation. It's going to get more people outdoors. It's going to educate a lot of people about habitat and wildlife management, whether they hunt or not. It gives, for example, the Turkey Federation platform to be able to get more people into their programs, because we're going to connect those people that want to get into those programs. It's basically a calendar of all these different opportunities, and we're going to match those people up with the opportunity that they're looking for. So when like our ad, the simple words are explore, discover, and learn about wildlife conservation. The Hunt Michigan Collaborative allows you to begin or continue your journey into hunting while rekindling or starting a family tradition. And with that message being out in communities that you think they don't agree with hunting, but again, our surveys, I'm willing to put out there that between 75 and 90% of the people are okay with it. We're all worried about the loud voice of those 10 to 15% saying,
the small,
what do you mean you're going to do that? And we need to like go with the majority and say, and because the majority, it's not about harvesting the animal all the time. It's about managing our wildlife, our habitat, because they're destroying, like I said earlier, our parks are being decimated with deer, the main contributor to what's going on there. So we've got to do a better job at managing our wildlife. We're not looking at eradicating deer. So we've got a very interesting opportunity. Herd. Yeah, we are working with the University of Michigan, and there's going to be 5 to 6 master's students over the next year and a half that are going to be, one of the main items I'm going to have them work on is to explain why deer hunting is necessary to be able to provide a healthy managed herd. So imagine the study and these results coming out of University of Michigan saying, yes, you should hunt.
Yes.
And that's going to speak volumes when it comes to maybe changing perception of people. It's not a bad thing, and we need to do it. And there's people willing to do it, and we need to connect them. So when we talk about these farm tour hunts, starting with antlerless deer, there's going to be the opportunity to hunt eventually turkey, raccoons,
Right.
goose. Like, what else are destroying those farm fields? And then beyond that, as we get these things more, the urban communities start to understand, okay, we can do some organized hunts in our parks and allow people to come to our parks and be able to do that, or private land. It's going to be easier for them to be able to allow that, as we've proven these results works. And in addition to those hunts, obviously, we're looking at doing calls as well, because the hunter may say, oh, we shouldn't do calls. We need to just hunt them. Well, there's communities out there that do hunts, but it's not enough to manage that deer herd. So we do have to do some calls to reduce that deer herd, because it's all about managing the wildlife. And so what happened with all this stuff that came out of this DMI, the Hunt Michigan Collaborative was one of the main things, but the other main thing is a statewide urban deer management plan that will provide communities the way how to operate and manage their deer by doing hunts and calls. So basically, city leaders will have the option to say, okay, here's how I would do it. Either I'm going to, manage the deer, or I'm not. So
yeah, you're putting the blueprint
right now,
together, which was what was missing at the beginning. The how-to.
So this is where it's going to help other states as Michigan goes through this. So the state, the DNR is going to provide that plan. The goal is by March, it's complete. So the plan already exists. All we are is adding more of that manual of how do you reduce the deer population, basically. And you're no longer stop talking about vaccinations, sterilizations, removal, transport. That's not going to happen. Our rules in the state of Michigan says we're not going to allow it. So what you can do is the lethal method, which is hunt or call the deer. Right. So city leaders will now have the option to say, yes, we're going to do that, or no, we're going to not do it. But then they're still going to have those problems that they're doing nothing about. So it's going to ultimately provide a model for other states to be able to say, okay, we can do this management in urban areas, and also educate the people through the Hunt Michigan Collaborative concept that will bring people the resources to be able to learn more about hunting, habitat, and obviously, get involved in hunting if they wanted to.
Yeah, I love how it all ties together. Here's my question. As I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about the urban hunt, like, all right, you're surveying these folks, you've got data to back, and I'm a data guy because the data doesn't lie, right? And you're getting overwhelmingly people are saying, yes, I'd be interested in hunting. Yes, we do have a deer problem. To all these questions that you're asking, my perception, because perception's reality sometimes, and sometimes we need to change our perception. Okay. But, we're in Pennsylvania, and in PA, there's a lot of urban, like old big woods, God's country. We have it here in Pennsylvania. A lot of great heritage of deer hunting, and everywhere you go, you're going to have people that are going to be positive, just like if we were to do those type of surveys. But having said that, the more urban we go, into these urban markets and stuff, my perception, and this is not based on data, this is just my gut, but that population or that demographic looks at hunting a little bit differently. And I think just in our conversation, you found ways to thread the needle and get people to look at things a little bit differently. But talk to me a little bit about challenges you've had with getting people on board in those urban situations, people that are not necessarily anti-hunting, but they're not necessarily pro killing the deer at first.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. We, it's an interesting question, because I'll give a good example. I've got a donor anonymous donor that only I know who that gives this money towards invasive species management. The person who really loves a certain park in our community and is given, for example, over $300,000 to build a bridge to access the other part of the park. So about $40,000 a year the person has been given for invasive species management. Mm-hmm. So this past year, I met with the person and said, and I don't think they agree with hunting, and I figured that out throughout the years, but sure. I went out on a limb and said, do you realize one of the main contributors to our problem is deer, and we need to figure out how do we manage these deer because we keep reducing and trying to get rid of these invasive species and plant native species, but we can't because we've done studies to show, we've done exclosures and say, look, this is where the deer can't get into. Mm-hmm. Look at how that looks, and then look outside of that and what the deer have gotten to. So we've proven throughout this time that the deer are a major contributor to our problems. So I said, we won't use the money that you give, but we're going to have to do something about this. And I think it's going to happen where we're going to start reducing the deer population. And they said, I understand that needs to happen. I don't want to do it myself, sure. But I understand and that's important that it should happen. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, our perception is they're going to be against it. The people that aren't educated don't understand the importance of it. People that may live in an apartment may not realize because they don't live in a home that have deer in their backyard with little kids or pets and they're worried about them. They don't see that happening because they don't see that.
They're not impacted the same way, right?
Yeah, deer vehicle crashes. When I've had people call me that their kid just got their license and they're concerned they might hit a deer because they've hit a deer. And mm-hmm. my family alone have hit 4 deer in the last few years, and 2 of them are my daughters that are teenage drivers, and the deer ran into them. And one for example, was so upset that she wanted me to find the deer so she could eat it. And so I found the deer. We went to my buddies. We cut out the back straps, and that weekend we had some fillets. So she was like mad that it hurt her car. So it was awesome. Yeah. But so in Farmington Hills alone, last year we had 123 deer that were reportedly hit. So when I say reportedly hit, they called the police department and said, hey, I hit a deer. What happens in Michigan, I can't speak for other states, but if you hit a deer, you don't have to call the police department and report it. You just call your insurance agency and say, I hit a deer. What am I going to do? They don't mm-hmm. report it. So it's not being tracked. So based on my personal experience, one of the 4 deer were actually had the police involved, and the other 3 deer we didn't call. So if you figure, and I talked to other people, so let's say
numbers are hypothetically
25% of the deer are reported, let's say, that we're seeing, yep. But there's probably another, out of 123 deer reported, there's probably 500 deer, 400 deer that's been actually hit, and several not reported. So when you do the math of if we had 100 deer that were hit, each deer vehicle crashes between $4,000 and $5,000 in deer vehicle damage. So let's take the high end. It's $500,000 for 100 deer that were hit. And it's costing insurance payers, insurance companies to have to pay for those, that damage. So if we can reduce that in half and said, okay, let's try to call some of these deer, give them to food banks, hunt the deer, and let's keep our roads safer and have only 50 deer hit next year. It's only $250,000 versus a half. It's common sense to say, do we want to just let this keep happening and you complain about deer and you don't want to shoot them, or do we want to do something about it? So when those people like in Pennsylvania are saying, I'm not sure I want this to happen, whose responsibility is it if CWD or another a large spread of Lyme disease, yep. And now we see our potentially pets we don't know enough about CWD that what if it's spread to pets? What if humans we don't know enough about it. So
we don't know
who
what
are they
we
going to
don't
blame
know.
Yeah. Who are they going to blame when the decision of not doing anything about it? It's going to be our city leaders that didn't say we need to manage the deer. So if we don't do anything, we're going to be in trouble. And if we do something, I don't think we're going to be in trouble. It's only going to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's a logical approach, and it's actually looking at the whole picture, the big picture, not just the, you know, the tiny issue at hand. It's looking at it as a inclusive. What are all the things that are impacted and affected with this? How do other states get involved? Like you said, this isn't something like you don't own the idea, but how do we get other states involved doing or following the blueprint?
So I think you had Otis from Arkansas on the podcast
Right.
a little bit ago, and I met Otis at the ATA show, and they have a great urban deer management program in Arkansas, and it's more of allowing hunters to harvest deer with the bow, or archery in urban areas. And that's what we would obviously be looking at. A lot of the urban areas, you wouldn't be able to allow a gun in those areas. It's usually going to be an archery. So we've learned from what Arkansas has done. We've talked to people in Illinois. We've worked with the USDA. We've gotten a lot of good examples. And Michigan, what we're going to be able to provide to other states is really this model of here's how we developed the statewide urban deer management plan, that it's not just in Southeast Michigan where we're having this problem. There's a whole nother coalition that we helped get started on the west side of the state in the Grand Rapids area that has the same problem. We also have in our capital area, the Lansing area has the same problem. So when we took that the regional approach that I talked about earlier versus the city by city approach, we realized we've got more power now that all across the state in urban areas, we have a deer problem in our major metropolis areas. So let's create a statewide plan that all of these communities that choose to do it can follow. And it's basically a formula of like, here's the step-by-step approach to reduce the deer population. And along with the education and everything else that goes with it. So then when city leaders can read that, they can vote to do it or not do it. So budget-wise, who pays for it? So at this point, that answer is yet to be determined. But
sure,
we've spoke with insurance companies, the main association for companies in Michigan, and we're starting to work with them to say, okay, should maybe some money come from that area? Should it be a legislative body? Should it be cities start to pony up some money to help habitat improvement, which would be not just invasive species removal, but also deer management? And the cities that we're talking to that are part of this are more than open to help put some skin in the game to help manage those deer. But on top of that, there's mechanisms that as we develop more hunting opportunities, it's going to be more license sales for the state of Michigan. There's more funding going in that pot that eventually those grants, we have wildlife habitat grants that we can start to go after money and say, hey, what if you provide a 50-50 match to these cities that are willing to put some skin in the game? Can you provide some grants? So I see that coming down the road. I think as this grows in Michigan, our goal, so I'm speaking at the ATA summit this year about the Hunt Michigan Collaborative. So a lot of state agencies are part of that across the country, and they're going to hear about it as we develop it and create this model. It's actually a nonprofit. So the Hunt Michigan Collaborative has become an idea into a nonprofit, and we have some major people that are on our board that are helping to put that together. Once that becomes a nonprofit, we have our bylaws and everything in place. That's an example that we can share that with other states to say, okay, here's the model, here's the bylaws, just change the name to the state you're in. We're making everything we do duplicable, so it's easy. From the detailed hunt sheets to farmer, we're creating it all so that way it's easier. And ultimately, the passion behind all this comes from every time for the past several years, we've all read articles in several different magazines. We've heard it on podcasts. We've seen on TV shows that hunting is never going to be what it once was. And I disagree 100% that this is the idea that we can grow hunting, because we're all working together to do it. And I brought, when I presented this idea during public comment at the Natural Resource Commission to be able to share more information, I bought 2 or 4 towels, and each towel said Hunt Michigan Collaborative. It was a little white golf towel.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the, what I said was, here's a towel. If you don't believe we can grow hunting, take it and then throw it in and then let somebody else fill your spot. Because if that's how you're going to think that we're never going to be what it once was, then you've given up. And if you start to come up with, if like market hunting, people have fear of that. Like, what if we have to go that route to reduce the deer population? And the argument back is, have we tried everything? We haven't tried this all the way yet. So let's do it. And now that we've started it, it's everybody's on board. So we look forward to sharing more of it throughout other states who's ready to take on that same approach. So look for it.
Yeah, no, I love it. This is exciting to just sit here and talk to you about and hear you describe. And I'm getting pumped up, just having this conversation. How can our listeners connect with you, follow you, or connect with a Hunt Michigan Collaborative? How do we find you?
So there's a website. It's a Hunt MI Collaborative. So MI is the short for Michigan. We have on that website, it's really easy to navigate. It describes what we're doing, and there's a couple other links from that. So one is that calendar of all these hunting opportunities, like I mentioned earlier with the National Turkey Federation. There'll be farm tour hunts on there for 2025. All the other opportunities throughout Michigan. And the other part, if you're a landowner, if you're from Michigan, it's not just farms that we're opening this up to. We've had actual nature preserves, people that run those for counties, saying we've got a major deer problem in our nature preserve and we need to manage the deer. We realize it's a nature preserve, but we can't let this many deer be here. So they've reached out to say, can we do some organized hunts on those properties? So again, it's given people access to these great hunting properties. Again, antlerless deer to start, but as time goes on, it's going to spin off into other wildlife and even, antlered deer. So it's going to be exciting as this thing continues to grow. But that's how you'd find out. So basically, as a hunter, it's a hunter interest form. Click that, and then you'll be able to put your information in. And then as we have hunts put together, we'll email everybody out directly. So you'll be able to see that instead of going to the calendar and keep looking. And we're going to keep in touch with everybody that wants to hunt. We're doing a hunt January 4th. And to give you an idea, we opened up 3 blinds for this hunt, and we had 3 other blinds already filled up with some stakeholders. And within less than an hour, it was so quick that we put the word out and the blinds were filled up immediately. So we have a registration software that people can sign up right there. They get the rules. They sign the waiver for the National Deer Association, and then they got their blind, they got their spot. So it's going to fill up quick. In 2025, we're going to be doing, we're looking at doing about 15 hunts to get started. And then it'll build from there. 2026, there'll be 100 hunts. 2027, it'll double, and it'll keep doubling. So we're gradually building this thing up, training guides. Each guide, so there's another opportunity if people want to be a guide in this stuff, whether you're, once you start this in another state or in Michigan, we want to give the guides some incentive and not just be a volunteer. Like you said earlier, it's hard to keep volunteers.
Sure is.
I want to be able to give gas money to be able to, the time, not necessarily their time, but their gas. They're going to buy some snacks for people probably. Give them $100 or $100 in gift cards to be able to help manage this hunt and lead people, and obviously mentor and educate them on field dressing and other things. So it's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah.
I love it. Bryan. I wish we could stay on here and talk for hours, which we probably could. You're giving me a lot of good data here. Guys, if you have one last thing that you would want to put through as far as advice to our audience, and anybody that comes on our show, you become part of the family and our online our online family here of hunters. Parting words, like what advice would you give to the folks here that are following Tracks and Tackle?
I'd say don't be selfish. Like, we all like our spot to go. We like our private, if we could find that secret spot in state land somewhere. But ultimately, if we don't do something to grow hunting and we don't all come together to do this, we're going to lose a lot of freedom and opportunity if we don't start helping some other people out too. So if you have somebody that that would like to get into hunting, take a day away from your own self and show them how to hunt. Can you imagine duck hunting for the first time by yourself? Like, no. Like, no one's going to go out there and figure out how to duck hunt by themselves. So if somebody opens up the door for you and says, hey, I'd be interested in doing that, listen and make a difference. And so don't just think about yourself. Think about getting somebody else out there. Even if it's just one person that you take, that's going to spin off into potentially a whole family and a tradition that you just help create. And you're going to make a difference if you can take one person out.
Tradition is something, when we're talking about changing perspectives and educating people, family tradition is something that almost universally people gravitate to, Yeah. And so it's got to start somewhere. That's a message that I think that we can all rally around. And I really appreciate you joining us tonight, Bryan. Hey, folks, what I want you to do is I want you to go online and visit the Hunt Michigan Collaborative. It's huntmicollaborative.com. You get all the information there. You can follow these guys on Facebook. I think they got a Facebook page as well. Leave us a like, send us your comments, questions, anything like that. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, just about anywhere that we have socials sort of covering everything from Mentor Outdoors to 3B Outdoors to Tracks and Tackle. Leave us a like, share this podcast. That helps get this message out so other people can see it, hear it, and spread the message. So, Bryan, appreciate you for giving me a little bit of your time here this evening. If you want to hang on, we'll wrap it tonight. And we just thank the hunting family for tuning in, guys. Until next time, get outdoors, stay safe, and remember, nature is our playground. Have a good night.